JP Morgan is positioned well to help serve these nonprofits and their communities. So would love to follow up with you after to find out what specific zip code. I'd be more than happy to connect you with your community branch manager in your jurisdiction.
Man, that's awesome. So, in the words of the prophet T.I., if it ain't about the money, don't be hitting me up. So, you mentioned, that $30 million commitment, and I'm sure, the other panelists have some level. So, let's accept that, right? There's money out there. We know there's money out there. So, and I'll pass this question to Ms. Shakita. What does success look like, right? What did a successful funded project or program look like? What specifically did they need or have to turn in? And what was the turnaround time? All that type of stuff.
Great question, Mabry. Definitely, let me say while I sit next to my Chase brother. Definitely, Truist definitely is what? We're ranked number 7. When you talk about rankings within financial institutions, so I know they're at the top. So they can certainly make a pledge that can certainly benefit and communicate and benefit community.
Right.
At Truist, our mission is to inspire and build better communities. And we recognize that we have to do that in historically underrepresented and communities that didn't get capital, didn't get resources. And how we do that when you look for a corporate funder, because remember, there's a donor pyramid. If you're in the nonprofit space as an executive director, you have a board, and you should have a fund development plan. Part of your strategy is to do what? When you look at the pinnacle, at the bottom is family and friends. Do they support you? Do they love you? At the next, is it private foundations, family foundations? Is it your events that bring you and raise dollars? And at the pinnacle of that is corporate funding. So when you come to a corporate foundation, your ducks must be in a row. Because it's not, my name isn't outside. It's not Shakita Board's Bank. It's Truist. And so definitely we need for you, our pillars are very specific. We have 2. We honed our strategy, kind of whittled it down to 2 strategic pillars to be effective in the community. One is building capacity. We want to build capacity or building career pathways for economic mobility. That's retraining, retooling tomorrow's workforce so that they can earn high wages, build wealth, see Caleb, and more importantly, invest in their community, pay it forward. The second is strengthening small businesses. You all look at your models. I don't know if the model is looked at as a small business, but again, when we talk about strengthening small business, what's the one important need everybody needs? He just said it, Mabry just said it, access to capital. That's the big gap. So access to capital and technical assistance. What I heard today and what I've learned today with you is the ability to make sure our infrastructure is spot on. Because you certainly need to tap into, there was a bookkeeper, the young lady that works with the Black Chamber here, and she gave us insights into the reparations session. So you gotta have that person that sees the vision around what? Submitting an application, doing the work, doing the homework. Look at who else we funded in your community. Have you contacted that organization? Erica is here in Vegas. She's a nonprofit. What kind of nonprofits are we looking for? We have an open application portal. But I will say this, connectivity is key. You cannot just be, you can be connected but then disconnected. So,
you gotta say it a little bit louder.
Let me stand up. Let me stand up. You have to be connected. Everything in the plenary session today said building relationships. When you walk into your bank, it's not enough just to know your branch manager. Your branch manager needs to have you connected with wealth, with the not-for-profit governance leader, certainly with a small business banker. You need to be well connected so that when we're sitting in the room making decisions, Mabry, someone at the table can pound the table for your organization. They can pound it, okay? Go ahead.
That is so, the relationship, we could talk about, put in an application, but I can tell you in some of the biggest deals that I've ever seen, it's because of the relation aspect. That's probably the fundamental, most important thing. Any decision, and just think about any major decision that's ever happened in your life, is when you have been not inside the room. Biggest decisions have always been when you're outside the room, so you always have to have that partner at the table. If I like you, I could vibe with you, I connect with you, I see your vision, then I'm your advocate in specific corporations like this white bank, like JP Morgan Chase, to make sure that I can communicate your vision in the way that they speak. So it's so, and I just really want to harp on that. Relationships is so key. Anytime you're putting an application, sometimes you just submit it and let it go. But if you, especially for JP Morgan, if we see you out in the community, you have that connectivity, your network, we want to buy into that. You know, we want to, what can we do? Because you obviously got it right. We're trying to make sure that we're accepted. So what can we do to make sure that we have that same network and community? And because of that, you know what? I'll throw you a lob as well, because I know you need help. We need help as well. So relationships are so key. And I think you had a question.
I wonder that. So I'm not, like, I think we're talking about like some banks, giving, but specifically banks and lenders.
Yeah.
And you know, we're all here, well, not all people from all over, but this is about like cooperatives.
Yeah.
And so, one of the issues that we have, and my the reason we work with cooperatives in particular, but I believe this is true for all the cooperatives, is that first of all, it's a problem with having them lend, because, you know, banks will want these personal guarantees, which is not consistent with what a cooperative, how they work. So, getting them to even give a loan is that we have a business, a very successful business. It took forever to get this business funded because of the banks and how they unrated their lack of understanding, right, of how co-ops work. So if we can't even get them to give a loan, which is how banks make money, right? Like in the end, they're making money. Getting them to give philanthropic grants to those of us who work on creating and supporting MTA to cooperatives seems like almost impossible to me. So I'd love to hear your perspective.
So have you all ever funded that type of work, right? Somebody that will provide technical assistance, i.e. my organization does that. So,
I got you. No, absolutely. I mean, just to take a step back on like the loan conversation, when you're thinking of a big bank, they're going to take very, very limited risk in terms of the loans that they're going to give out. At the end of the day, they're a business. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of like the recent bank failures that have happened, and JP Morgan acquiring First Republic Bank. The reason why they're able to do those things is because they take very, very educated and well-positioned risk. The issue that I found, like even with my own family, my own mother, she couldn't get a loan from a bank, and I worked there. And that's because, look, we know, and I'm not putting my mom on blast, she knows what's up, is that she has to be well capitalized, and she has to have her ducks in a row. So
let's talk about those ducks. Like, if we had to name a duck, what duck?
But I want to go where it started. He said that they partner with third party. So when you don't qualify based on the lending practices within the bank, then that's the reason there's the CDFIs, alternative service providers, because banks recognize, you know, as much as they want your capital, we need to what? We need to strengthen the community through partnering. So CDFIs are critical. We fund a number of CDFIs. You don't fall under CDFIs, but they provide the technical assistance, which is, okay, go.
Can you go down with a CDFI, like break it down?
Community development financial institutions. And so when you look at, again, LIFT is huge. Grameen America also is an organization, national. These are national organizations. So when you look at the footprint of where the dollars go, follow the money. So that's the reason I said you've got to do your research, and your research might get you in the door, Mavory, through a CDFI that also is looking for a third partner. See, they can't, you know, because on paper, see, you've got to be strategic. How are you going to partner with that CDFI so that your cluster receives that technical assistance, maybe not directly through a Chase or a Truist, but if you walked in Lyft, or if you walked into a Grameen, or if you walked into Community First Fund, which is, you know, a $2.2 million fund that we supported out of Philly.
I think I heard Seed Commons.
Seed Commons, the woman's called.
So I want to, 1 second, we'll take some questions. So let's talk a little bit about the ducks a little bit, right?
Yep, talk about it.
So Seed Commons is a CDFI.
Okay.
Right? Our organization is a member of the Seed Commons, so we provide we provide the TA. So what our ducks look like is we do a business model canvas with the business, help them look at their key partners and all of that stuff, their value propositions, their revenue streams and all of that stuff. We help them put together a financial model, right? What are your revenues? What are your cost margin? What are your operating margins? What is your profit? You know, and all of that stuff, pro forma for projections, like projecting your financials out 3 to 5 years or something like that. You have to be able to tell the story of how this business can potentially pay the money that's being lent out, right? So that's how I'm sure other lends looking at those things too. The difference between, I would think, these, their lending and like what Seed Commons does is it directly, like, the financing is driven by the technical assistance, right? It's not like a no or a yes. It's like we're gonna put somebody to work directly with you to come up with the plan. Case in point is one of the projects we funded is a worker-owned restaurant, right? As a worker-owned restaurant, when they came to us for TA, they initially asked for a relatively small number, right? Let's just say $10,000, right? If you're thinking about that industry, you're starting a brick and mortar restaurant, off the ground, no track record. We couldn't and didn't get that funded, that $10,000, even though we could, because it wasn't a fully vetted out, sustainable plan, right? So we kept going back to the table with them, and it took over a year, right? But it was like building that trust and that relationship where we could keep coming back to the table with them. Eventually, they were financed for 6 figures, right? But it made sure that it included everything that would be in place to make, as best as we can see, to make the plan sustainable. So what are the wages being paid to members, right? Are you going to have other staff that are non-members? What is your cost of sales margin and all that stuff? So how much working capital runway did they need to build up the projected time period when they were expected to be profitable, right? What assumptions were you making about that, which drove, like, they need, in this particular case, we estimated about 60-some thousand or so that was just geared towards working capital so that they can make payroll until they built their client base up, right? So that's how it grew from a $10,000 ask to over a 6-figure ask, right? But is that, like, how can you guys tell us, like, how people can directly get access to that deep level of support? Because we keep saying, put your ducks in a row, put your ducks in a row, but nobody know the name of the duck. They don't know where it lives. They don't know if it can fly or not. Like, so how are they going to get how they going to even round up these ducks to get them in the row to get in line and get your funding?
Is there a order for the row?
And so to add to that as well is looking at, you mentioned the alternative options with the CDFI. Okay, so with co-ops, there's that alternative governance model. There's that alternative structure when you look at who's putting their name and the number of people putting their name on the line. So is how can the foundations, how can the banks move into that space because they're small businesses as well. Most co-ops qualify when you look at what the qualifications.
All of them qualify as small business.
For
Not
small
most.
business, so it's going, to answer your question, it's going to be a small business. But how do you get that recognition or move the traditional banking sector into viewing the co-op business, the business model and structures as a viable investment or lending opportunity beyond just the traditional mechanism structure? Because a lot of times that's the barriers and obstacles. You know, when we look at, you mentioned education, technical assistance, networks, connections, and capital are the primary barriers to wealth building and minority and women communities, et cetera. So it's how do we shift that? What does that look like? And let's look out to where do we shift the ducks or the ducks geese? Let's shift. Let's let
the panelists answer.
So I just wanted to frame that out.
Yeah, so I think sometimes we try to make what the ducks are very overly difficult. When you're thinking about getting a loan from the bank, just think about if you was going to loan your cousin. Like, what would you look for in terms of the ultimate goal is how do I ensure that I'm going to make sure I get my money back? That's the ultimate thing. To answer your question is the banking industry is very slow to move. It's very old. It has things that have been set in place years before today. But the one thing that I think could change it is technology. And the reason why I say that is traditionally, if you're going for a mortgage or a small business loan, they usually ask, can you give me 2 years worth of financial statements? If you're a small business and you don't know accountant, do you have enough money to even hire an accountant to be able to look at those financial statements? One of the CDFIs here in Las Vegas has technology where they can look through your statements, and from just analyzing the statements and looking at your cash flow, they can say like, hey, you have enough cash to pay this loan back. You might not have this duck or this duck, but like based off of just using technology and analyzing the stuff that you do have, we can make a qualified loan for you. It's gonna be very difficult for a bank like right now to do that, which is why it's so key for us to partner with these third parties that have a little bit more flexibility. Us trying to change one thing in the course of a global bank like JP Morgan Chase is gonna take forever, and we don't got forever.
I think what I'm trying to understand, when you keep saying partner, so, and that's good, like we talked about like the loans directly.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying to understand the movement of money, foundation money, or these wealthy individual money, to the CDFIs or other nonprofits, as you keep saying about partnering with nonprofits.
Yeah.
Like, what's the channel for that? For instance, this young lady here is the Black Chamber of Commerce in New Mexico, and the city had asked them to develop cooperatives, right?
Absolutely.
So they'll need money
Right.
to do that work.
So within big corporations, you have individuals that focus specifically on that. So we have the JP Morgan Foundation, and all they do is give sponsorships and 5 different opportunities in the community to be able to advocate for those causes. There are individuals in specific cities that are connected to the foundation to know about things like that in New Mexico. So if there's not a contact or a network or somebody that you know for a specific bank, us, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the goal is to go on their website and see who is that person that represents them and get on their radar to be able to make that connection. And if you don't need to know somebody in New Mexico, I'm personally happy to be able to make that connection. So ultimately, the goal is that we do have it just takes a little bit more work on your end to find out who is the key person to be able to connect you, which is why the relationship thing is so key. You could apply, but if you know somebody that sees your vision as an advocating for what you do, then that makes it a lot more easier. And I'm not gonna sit here and make it sound like it's super easy to find like where these different.
Well, I'm gonna push back a little bit, right? Because like from a community development perspective, what are some strategies y'all have to like come where the people are, like come into the community to get them access to this stuff?
And that's
right.
it. And
How can we meet people where they already are at, so that, because that's a lot asking us if we out here trying to run a business, or the people out here trying to run a business, or a nonprofit that supports cooperative business, we trying to run that, and we working directly with the members of those, right?
Absolutely.
We know we gonna have time to go on the website and do this, so what are the big banks doing to come into the community?
But I'm gonna step in just for a second. There are two things that I heard, and one is with banks are highly regulated, and so based on their regulatory requirements, you know, it makes things a little what? The challenges are there. Let's just call it what it is. That's enough.
Yeah.
But the thing there is, within every bank, community development is typically handled under CRA, which is the Community Reinvestment Act.
Right.
And you all know that. So if you don't know your community development officer, every bank has a community officer.
Yeah.
So you have to connect with that expert. And at Truist, they have 4 program areas, which are different from the foundation. They do affordable housing, workforce development, small business entrepreneurship, and essential community services. That means you need to see them in the community.
Yes.
You see that, Mabry? That places them. And if you have an event, that's the person you really want to be in your community.
So we can invite them to.
You need to.
Wait a minute. So to your point is why aren't we coming to where you are? For every community branch manager across the state, they have to have 2 listening sessions per quarter. Like, that is a requirement. You can't say that you are a successful community branch manager unless you have 2 listening sessions. That means that I need to open up my branch and I need to invite the community to listen, not to talk, to listen. So that's us essentially invited.
Is that JP Morgan Chase?
So that's a JP Morgan Chase thing. So like, for example, one of the things that we're planning on right now in the month of June is a listening session, which is like the first point, is which I said, essentially, we keep guessing what y'all need, but like, let's listen to see what is the requirement. That is a listening session. That is a requirement as a part of the CRA that Ms. Chris talked about.
So would you say, I'm sorry, so would you say it would be prudent for every organization in here, when they have a meeting of some sort, you pick up the phone and you call that CRA representative to say, hey, we want you to come hear what we're planning. 2 is minimum.
2 is minimum.
So we can have a person work, correct?
Yeah, so
And
when
then pick up the phone, we're having a meeting, we'd like you to come and invite, hear what we have going on, we can open it up to the community or something. But my point is, if we invite, they should come.
So when I say listening session, this is a JP Morgan organized event. So that means that we're putting it out and we're saying, hey, we have a listening session that is going to be at this specific branch or this nonprofit organization, and we're inviting community members in, nonprofits, urban chambers of commerce, small businesses, to listen. If you want to call the CRA or whatever that representative, you can definitely do that. Is that going to be a part of a thing to where they say, like, I can guarantee you that they're going to come or anything like that? That is not a part of their curriculum. What I do know that is a part of their curriculum is that they need to have two listening sessions per quarter where they invite everybody else. What I would advise is, yes, you should create some type of a relationship. Now, I understand that we all got things to do. We all have things to do, but the relationship thing is so key. And that relationship is going to be between thousands to $1 million of funding just from that. So I'm saying, yes, as a bank, it is our job to make sure that we go out into the community, but it helps if you just have that connection and that personal relationship. That's really how most of the deals are done. Yes, sir. Oh.
Well, hold on. We're gonna get this brother right here, the blue.
That's right.
You had your hand up like 4 times.
We're going ahead.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, you know, this is a new day we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that part about relationship, remember, I'm from the town of August Wilsonburg, and I also privileged to work in the community that he writes about, the historic Hill District. And one of his plays is called Radio Golf. And the golf part is about learning how to play golf so you can be around those folks to make those connections. But you know, it's not going to work for us. I mean, we may get into the country club, but we ain't going to get to his dinner party. We damn sure ain't going to marry his daughter. So we got to think differently. And I mean, the solution's right there. Bring that $30 million, because $30 million will probably rebuild.
Billion.
50 historic, maybe 100 historic black communities. 2 of them in Pittsburgh can be built from the ground up with probably
But see,
a $250,000. But the point I want to make is, what I want y'all as bankers to take back to your bank is, this is a new day. You're at a community around about cooperatives. And what we're about on the Hill District is to rebuild these communities with tenant-owned cooperatives. So when it comes to housing development, Bill Jones, the white guy, is going to come here and talk about a $100 million project, but he wants to make 20% profit off it. We're going to come with a $100 million project. We just want to make 4% so we can pay some salary.
Right.
So that means when you loan us the money, you're easily going to get your money. So what I want folks to see is this cooperative model is better than the current model as we cut out the profit. So you're going to make money. I'm not asking you to do more dope shares for us. What I need access to is bankers to show us how this model works and will make your bank money, and you ain't got to give us nothing.
Well, I want to clarify real quick, that's a great point, brother. When he say cut out the profit, it's not that we ain't making profits, right, or making them more profitable. Is that other types of entities, traditional businesses, are putting an additional markup on whatever it is that they sell because they try to just get more profit
checks.
Investors have to make money.
Yeah,
So let me
yeah.
just go ahead and jump in. I want to share from a different side. So I thank God for banks. Banks have given me some money, and it has helped. And there's a whole different pot that banks don't even deal with. So, and it's the relationship piece, which is why in my organization, Basket Las Vegas, that's what we build, because to cooperate takes a skill set. And the skill set is lacking deeply in our culture. And so building, talk about a duck, you gotta get the ducks of how do we have a disagreement? A duck of how do we build and establish trust? A duck of what is integrity? You can have $1 billion and lose it overnight because you did something outside of the ethical bound. There are people, and I know in Vegas we got about 12, that have money in the bank that starts with a B. How do you get access? How do you marry their daughter? You build relationships. You don't have to marry the daughter. But I'm saying, how do you get close enough to do that? It's all about building the relationship, and that starts with expanding your circle of influence. We are here in a black cooperative because we need to have some money. We need to cooperate with each other. It takes a skill set. But also, we need to then say, how do we, and I'm gonna use the word infiltrate. I don't mean it in the negative aspect of that word, but how do we infiltrate the billionaires? We do that by having conversation. How do we have conversation? Again, that is the skill. So there's a regulatory issues with banks and CDIF, you got this stuff. There are folks that will look at you and say, I like what you're doing, how much do you need?
That's right. Say that.
And that is really where we can just rock it from that type of investment. Now, I'm going to be honest. That is few and far in between, and it may sound harder than getting the bank to fund you, but it exists. How do I know it exists? Because 2 months ago, I was sitting in the co-founder of Microsoft's living room. How did I do that? Through relationship. And I wouldn't ask for no money, I was there for something else. But if I needed some money, when I go back, because I built that level of trust, this is a long-term process. Overnight success takes 100 years. And that's why the cooperative model is so important. And we gotta just learn to be nice to each other too.
Yes.
So with you saying that, man, with the dollar amounts being thrown out there, is how do we take and leverage your positions and proximity to the work that you're doing and help put the money in front of the work of why we're here?
Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned is that we have about 12 billionaires here in Las Vegas. I know 4 that I work with, here at the bank. Now, when you say like, it's a different area, it definitely is a different area. Let me break it down. I'm from Compton, California, okay? And lived in Flint, Michigan. So when I say that, it's like I'm not supposed to be in those rooms or having those conversations, but I know for sure that the time is very different because I'm at the table having those conversations. And we're talking about how do we get access to those billionaires. It's like you could ask anybody that knows me, if you want to pull up to one of our events, you could come to one of our events. I'm more than happy. I can't tell a billionaire to give you any money, but I could definitely get you a seat to have a conversation with that individual. So that's why I'm saying it's so key to having the relationships, because it is very few and far between, but some of the easiest way is just knowing the person. So I agree that it's very difficult as black people to have some of those conversations, that some of our white counterparts have been in elevator banks making $150 million deals just because they happen to be there and son knows this person. But what I'm saying, my ultimate goal is to change that. And I change that because I do believe that through relationships, I'm where I'm here today, and I wasn't here by myself. The goal was to bring all of you guys and bring the village that helped me get here as well. So like I would say here in Las Vegas, I can't speak on New Mexico or New York or anything like that. I'd be more than happy to connect you guys with people. But here as Las Vegas, would love to invite you in those rooms to have those conversations. That's what our people need.
Okay, we got a couple of questions. Our elder right here, he had a question.
Yeah, I've been listening to this, and my name is Herb Crosby. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm a contractor to the African American Chamber. So I'm in a different place, from the ducks to the millionaires to the marrying and the wives. I want to leave that. I think I started a program with them, with the chamber, where we take basic people who are in business, basic African American people, who don't know how to get to these people you're talking about. And so I set up a clearinghouse, a process. I said, I'm a clearinghouse person. I'm a professor, been doing this 51 years. And this is the first time that I've seen, I'm from California, been in New Mexico for 30 years. And what we need is we need somebody with a knowledge of business to get these people where they can get to you. And I'm listening at this bank thing, you ain't getting no money from no banks, it's about business. You don't have collateral, you're not gonna have character and all this other forth, you ain't getting a dime. So let's stop up here and let's move back down to my program. Now, according to our president.
That's some cronyism, and we need a real life halfway, like you're saying.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is then what I do is once I take them in, we got an intake questionnaire, find out what they need, then I got a situation, an organization called SCORE.
Yeah.
These retired executives, white folks that want to help some of us. And I've identified one person that when I send that person to them, they give them everything they need. They need an accountant, they need a lawyer, they need a small money source, they need a marketing plan, they need a business plan, they need a networking system. So now they can start here and elevate themselves to be able to get to the Chase Center, the Bank of America, if they need it. I think the banks, sorry brother, I love a new concept, but I think that's your worst source.
Yep.
I also sit on a board called the Loan Fund. We're an alternative lending organization to banks, and I'm the chairman of the board, been there 15 years. So we're able then to go as low as we need, as high as we need. Now we just funded a young fella in this program who worked and bought the company and opened a second store. So we didn't need him on the lower level. He was ready then not to go to a bank that take 10 years. He'd be dead before he get the money. So what we did was we got him $250,000 in 2 weeks. But he was ready. So the problem is you get all these folks that come from your bank and these folks who represent the community. And a lot of us don't understand basic fundamental English to be able to explain. Well, they can do that to me. And the people I send them out to also understand that these are just black folks with a great idea. One of the things I want to say to you folks, me being 500 years old, I'm coming, baby, I ain't gonna be a few years. But I want to say, I want to get this point across and not sit down. You're brilliant. The problem with us is we don't believe it. We still got that slave mentality, what that white man told us about ourselves, how we look and how we feel, and we believe it and we beat ourselves up for it. So forget my program. Take this in as motivation. You're brilliant and you can do it.
Yes.
You can find a way. We found a way. How many we got now? 40? You said it was 40, maybe more than that.
That was in the last 3 months.
Okay, maybe it's more than that now. But they're running our program like you would believe. How do we finance it? She's brilliant enough. We found a grant. And these folks say, if you want to help your black folks like that, make us look good to say we're doing something for y'all, here's money. We took the money and we took our brilliance under her direction, and now the benefit of people that's going to be seeing you at Chase.
Yes.
And then they can give us their money.
Keep taking questions. So, brother in the back, red shorts.
Thank you. I think what I'm trying to figure out is like, so we're here, trying to build the black solidarity economy, through the black cooperative movement, right? And we know that the reason why we're here is because harm has been done, right? And a part of that harm comes from the banks, right? And this is a panel about philanthropy, which philanthropy has been one of the main parts that kind of act as the spearhead to the nonprofit industrial complex that puts us in this perpetual cycle of always needing, because we never get enough resources. And I understand you go to the third party, the CDFI, but the CDFI don't have the amount of funds that we need and resources that we need. And so what the question that I have is like, when is philanthropy and what can you do to have those courageous conversations with these corporate entities that help create this harm, which puts us in this position to be trying to figure out how do we get resources to get back to humanity for our people, because the philanthropy is spearheading the nonprofit industrial complex, which is not solving our problem. And so we're trying to figure out how can we now get this money from you, right? These resources that we need to build our communities in a non-extractive way. I don't want to hear that go to a CDFI or get your ducks in a row, because that's the status quo, and that's what we've been doing, and it's not working.
From each of them, can you have a response like to that question? It's a good question.
You don't mean to beat up on y'all.
No, I ain't beating up any deal. No, like, I work for a CDFI, right? And I know, like I'm here. CDFI was founded by white people. Y'all are here and y'all roll. We all got families to feed. But what I'm saying is like at some point, we gotta have that courageous conversation and understand the harm that's being done by this very thing of philanthropy. And let's figure out and push and put pressure to do it in a different way, because we can't keep doing it the same way. We can't keep talking about ducks in a row when we know the literacy rates of our school systems that's producing the adults that come before you today is like we losing. And we're trying to figure out how can we change that, not keep doing it the same. And so this is not directed towards y'all.
I just want to say our older brother here, Herb, just gave us a strategy that's an alternative. So sometimes we gotta make sure we listen and learn.
I just want to say something real quick. Most of the things that we go through, if we're honest, is self-perpetuating. A lot of the things have been broken down. A lot of these things would open up for us, right? But the fact is, our ducks are not in a row. For every person I know that has a 700 credit score up to 800, there's 15 people I know who look just like me who have a 550. So your ducks are not in a row. And so what they've done is they've wised up, right? They're like, wait a minute, these black people getting access to PPP, they getting access to this that opened up for them. Okay, this is what we're gonna do now. We're gonna start requiring PGs, because we know a majority of them ain't got the credit score to be able to PG, right? So then what it does is it makes you have to say, and this is the thing, we're not powerless, right? We are not powerless, and it's like a lot of times we get into this thing of what they've done to us, but the most things and the harshest things that have ever happened to me have happened for people who look just like me. And I'm just gonna be honest. When I'm asking for money from someone who don't look like me, I'll get it quicker than I will from somebody who do look like me. And that's what has to change. We have a whole lot of like suspicion about each other. I'm serious. So you give money to a white bank before you give money to your cousin. I mean, I'm just being honest, right? I have a small business. I get money from other people. When we went to that listening party that we went to for Element Federal Credit Union, you know who hits up my phone? Jennifer. She said, oh, I saw something. You might qualify for this. I talk to people at SBA. They know I have a niche. They know I do private rentals. So they say, you know what? I just saw something on Hello Alice for private rentals, right? The only way you break through is to stop looking at yourself as if you're powerless and to seize it. And when they are saying relationships, literally, the doors never opened for me until I started showing up. And then when I started showing up, my name started ringing. They was like, yeah, Shamika do private rentals. Yeah, you get your rental car from her. She do private rentals. Don't go to Enterprise, go to her, right? So it really is relationships. Like we really have, I cannot stress it enough. Like you are not gonna get money from trying to change the system. You are going to get money from knowing the system and using it to your advantage. I'm sorry, I know somebody else.
Okay.
Let's circle back to his question and allow the panelists.
But then I do like this free conversation. I think it's very enlightening. So we do acknowledge all the hands that's been up, and we actually got time to go there today. So let's let the panelists answer that question, and then we're gonna take these two questions in the back after the panelists can answer that question about. And I'm gonna try to rephrase it a little bit. How do we get those philanthropic dollars to these organizations that are either directly co-ops or building co-ops? How do they get these philanthropic dollars to build cooperative organizations?
I'll jump in first because, I'm sorry. Joseph, you asked a great question. I've been at the table with Joseph all day today, okay? So he asked a question that I want to lean into. When you think about it, there are 76,000 foundations in the United States. So that means the power wields with those who actually have what? The money. One of the things, and the reason I'm here today is because Ron Hance serves as a community advisory member on our board at the bank. And so really to be intentional, to be intentional, you have to have a seat at the table. And when you're at the table, I'm for certain Ron raises your voices at each and every meeting when he's in front of a regional president. So when we think about, okay, how can we then turn this so that we can ensure that money reaches the co-ops in that 76,000, guys, again, I'm gonna put the work back on you. You have to do your research to identify what foundations or funders are certainly looking for the opportune moment. Is the environment right for the conversation that must be poised? Listen, you come into the bank for money, so let's have a poised conversation backed by data. You backed up your $10,000. You started with 10. Y'all want to come and, okay, scratch that. You want to come to the bank and ask for $1 million, and your budget is $10,000.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, who just said that? Thank you, thank you. The math doesn't work. You just talked about wealth. The math ain't math. So you've got to do the work. That's the reason you have to work with your boards. There's a question, I know we had a question about boards. Your boards are clearly your glue. They should be connecting you to this wealth that even Caleb talked about. You want to make sure you have the right people on your board, because you get the right people on the bus. The right people are going to find philanthropy for you, Joseph, that works. That means everybody's moving in the same direction. And so when we move in the same direction, are we mission? This is mission aligned, right? We're purpose. I'm purpose built, but you're mission aligned. And every single one of your board members should help you work as a catalyst. It's cooperative, right? I mean, compassionately to help you what? raise the dollars. If your goal was to raise 10 million, I need everybody on board to help raise 10. Philanthropy isn't the answer. It is the framework to get you there. But it takes all of us working together to raise that $10 million to give the organization the legacy and the sustainability to be here 10, 20, 30 years from now. That will be Chiquita Board's on.
You want to elaborate on that same question?
So with the philanthropy piece, I personally am not a fan of things like naming a building after a person that gave you some money, because they gave you some money because they did something wrong and they want the community to forget what they did. So I'm with you 1,000%. A couple weeks ago, I was doing my spring cleaning in the backyard. I got a little pond back there, and I tried out a new pond dye to make the water loop. Well, this new dye was actually a concentrated, and I thought I followed the instructions. I clearly did not, because I couldn't even see 2 inches down. It was that blue. But what did I have to do to get my water where I needed it? I had to add more water in and get the old water out. A lot of what we have been doing is putting in new water in an old pool and expecting overnight change. It simply does not work that way. And my sister, I think you took the words out of my heart, because we do need our ducks in a row. We do have to take care of each other. And part of that starts with taking care of each other. Because I might have a little sugar, you might have some eggs, you might have some milk. I don't really bake, so I don't know what I'm doing here. But if we put, and flour, you got the flour, and we got something we can eat. So while we may want to go to Chase and say, hey, give us 10 million, maybe we're not equipped individually to do that $10 million ask, but as each individual comes together, then we can put our pieces together. The other part of that, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's building trust. Because right now, we have a huge trust deficit, which is why we don't share the information. Because if I tell such and such about, they're going to get the opportunity I want, and I can't get it. But if I introduce you to somebody because I trusted you, and you burn that bridge, you ask that philanthropist, let me get $20 for lunch today, let me get $40 for lunch tomorrow, let me do this, let me do that. And you're out there constantly handing for a handout without providing that backing, without providing that plan. When you burn those bridges, that destroys the entire process. So philanthropy is a Band-Aid. The issue we have is our cultural paradigm is designed for the system we have. It is operating as designed. We have to admit that, adjust, recognize, learn the game, and say, thank you, philanthropists. Here's how we're going to move forward. I'm not going to accept this money and put your name on this building for this way. We have to get principled. We have to have, you asked earlier about the values, we have to stick to our values and be okay with saying no to money. I know we're in here trying to get money, but we got to be okay with saying no, because this is not in alignment. The last thing I'll say on this is, about a month ago, a philanthropist, a young person that came into wealth from family systems, came and said, hey, I've got money. I want to do this project with it. Can you help me? Well, if your project is not in alignment with what they care about, then asking them for money is not really going to be what yield the result you want. Which is why I circle all the way back. The relationship is what matters. Because if you don't know what they're interested in funding, it doesn't matter how great your credit score is, how great your application is, whatever. If you don't know them, you're not going to be asking for the right thing. And they may know someone that's interested in the work that you want to do. They can pass that information on if you've operated in integrity with trust and built the skills that I keep referring to.
So in Las Vegas, we're not ready yet for the cooperative model, but we are working, UNLV is working with Nevada Partners, and we have a whole array of businesses that are ready for you.
Right.
So we will be happy.
Right.
Awesome.
Sit on the board in the past hour.
We got a few questions in the back, my sister back here, glasses, no question? You right here?
Yes. So I just want to raise to the group, I feel like there's a real problem with the way we're framing the conversation. We're not necessarily disagreeing, but this is really an intense conversation that needs to be had. There's systemic issues that were designed to function a certain way, and there's individual responsibility and things we have control over. Those two are not the same thing. So for example, the basis of philanthropy is in racism. People who have benefited from the most exploitation are deciding to give us the scraps when they feel like it. That's the mechanism of philanthropy. So when we talk about putting it back on us and putting in systemic issues back on individuals, only people in positions of power are able to even say things like that to people because they're in a position of safety. So yes, we can develop ourselves and continue to teach each other, but I have a background in working in financial advising with TD. I teach top financial literacy for the last 10 years, and now I'm a cooperative developer. So I'm also invested in the development side and teaching of our people, but without acknowledging the actual structure in the system and what it was based on and how it still functions, you're correct, it is a Band-Aid, but we can't take systemic issues and put it on to people. So I guess in this conversation, I would just want to see a little bit more balance, because there are charities, for example, who are philanthropic, like the charities I've worked with, like Heifer International, the largest food insecurity charity in the world, and Amnesty International, the largest human rights charity in the world. They make sure to spend majority of their funds on operations. They're very tight on where the money actually goes as well. So how are people in the philanthropic world building coalitions to filter out the money and get it to people sooner, rather than continuing to perpetuate systems that were designed to oppress us from the beginning? The very nature of philanthropy is not to solve any problem. It's to give you enough so that you just continue on the answer.
Because you're right, we can't, one person can't change the whole structure. We also have to recognize, I forget who said it earlier, but we are in a new day, and there are philanthropists that have created plans for real change. And so it's not a 100%, oh, they're only doing this. On the individual level, we still have to take that responsibility, because we are not powerless, as he's gone now, but he mentioned that. We're not powerless. We do have an abundance of resource. Part of it is we're not trained in contentment, and so we think that driving the Benz or the Lexus or whatever it is success, when true success is actually, did I hug my kid tonight? Did I share a kind word with someone? So reframing who we are as a people is kind of what I started with about the Ubuntu principle. And I'm not discounting anything you say, because I think you're entirely right with that. But I think we have to be bigger and larger and recognize a totality of the issue and shifting the conversation without the blame or without assigning, demonizing anyone. And I'll be the first to say, I don't like naming buildings after folks or doing that, because it's reputation laundering. I don't think that's appropriate. But if I'm bleeding, please give me a Band-Aid until we fix the thing that's cutting me. That's equally as important. We can do both. And I want to just be really clear that, and thank you for sharing that, there are a lot of organizations in Nevada that are doing work to bring the cooperative model here. But we got to work together and trust and build that as individuals, because the reality of a system is that it reflects the values of the individuals.
The sister right here had a question.
So I want to uphold, so I work for the largest retail co-op in the Southeast, white led all day long. Didn't work there because it was a co-op, worked there because I needed a job. Essentially my role now is to tell all the black people all the stuff the white people are doing. And this is the third conference that I've been in that they bring in banking institutes. The black people from the banking institutes talk about how black people can get money. And every time I go, I see the same type of situation in the room where people are saying, how can I get money? And nobody's saying the truth. You're not going to get the money you're looking for. So when we talk about resources, we're talking about 3 people here, not 3 banks. I think that's what we're missing. We need to know what it looks like to walk into a room and be prepared. We need to know that a Lexus is not gonna get us there when we got a Honda that works for the next 10 years. That's what the bank's not going to tell you. I disagree that we can't get in the door and hear all the things and get real close, because that's what our generations have done. There were house Negroes that taught themselves how to read. Nobody has taught us to do this stuff. We can do it ourselves, but it needs to be stated honestly to our children that you don't need $1,000 cell phone, that you don't need a phone at all because you can't read. And that's the thing. So when you get to the point that you're actually asking for money, you know, like, let's be serious. We're all sitting up here and I bought my phone. But if you can't get a job, if you can't count money, then why are you going to the bank? There are a lot of people that cannot count money. So until you actually have that conversation, and I see it all the time, I would love to say co-ops are gonna get all this money. I've sat in so many conversations. Market studies are not prepared for black people to have grocery stores. So I don't know who's gonna go ahead and say that, but it needs to be said from the loudest of the loud. Because nobody talks about non-traditional grocery shopping. Nobody talks about getting a grocery out of Exxon. Nobody talks about a regular Target being the place where you get your milk. So until they do that, until they stop calling a campus of a college and a university a place that is now underserved because you've overpopulated dorms and now you need like 7, 8 grocery stores when you have historically black neighborhoods that do not have grocery stores. Until you have that, you have to have these conversations. It's not the bank. It's not going in and feeling like because you got $5,000 in your account, they're gonna match you. It's not that. It's teaching black people how to write a business plan. Just because it's a co-op, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars. You have to have the community that says we are going to shop here no matter what. It doesn't have to have a huge multi-million-dollar brick and mortar. It can happen however you want it to happen. When we talk about co-ops, do people know how to deal with the government filings of it? Do people know when you give somebody a dividend, they now have to pay taxes on this stuff? So people that are making less than they can really afford are now having to pay taxes because you wanted this financial standing. These are conversations. It's not about connecting with Truist and connecting with Wells Fargo and all these places, because Wells Fargo is nothing but predatory lending. And when it gets to be too much, then they change their name. So it's really hard for me to believe. I mean, let's be honest. It takes 100 years to move banks like from one side to the next, but let another bank fall tomorrow and they're going to figure out how to fix it. Tell me that that's not, the truth. If all black people said, I'm not going to put any more money in these large corporations, a small few people own all of financial wealth in America. So it's not a whole bunch of people. We have to talk to each other because exactly like my man over here said, the system is built for us not to thrive. So once we gain knowledge, it's gonna change. So it's about knowing the people on the inside, talking to people and saying, well, what do I need to do to show up for this stuff? The bank's not gonna do it. Not today, not tomorrow, not in 100 years.
Real quick, I just want to acknowledge to both, everybody, like, let me not get it twisted. The banks, this is like systematic racism that has been here farther. When it came down to reparations, 40 acres and a mule, work with a lot of wealthy individuals. The largest asset on anybody is having a house. And we couldn't get a house because banks redlined it, right? Mm-hmm. To your point is that the bank is that pool. I'm just one drop of the pool trying to do its best to make sure that we have a couple of people at the table. So I'm not sitting here that Chase is going to save everybody's life and change the system. All I'm trying to do is like, hey, I know the rules to the game. I know what white folks are talking about. So if I could just shed a bit of light of like what I'm hearing and just kind of give y'all a little bit of information so we have a little bit more rules that we didn't necessarily have before, like that is my role. And like I said, I'm open to hearing, especially as it relates to Las Vegas, of what we can be doing better as a bank. Because when I got there, the first thing that I said is like,
I heard it about 5 times, people need help writing business plans.
Right, so, and those are the things that...
Yeah, so I'm under 40. I started my business in Las Vegas 6 years ago. This is my 6th year. I went to school. It was a bunch of old white men who never encouraged me, left me feeling isolated. I never went back again. They didn't help me do nothing. And I would like to say that at this moment, I feel like it was a lot of advanced speak. I don't know what the hell y'all is talking about. I do not feel any more confident walking to a bank and think I'm going to get any help. And I'm sitting in a sea of black faces. There's not no white people in here to make me feel that way. So You know, I'm just saying, like, if we talking about bridging the gap, helping the youth, doing all this, that, and the other, people younger than me really don't know and are hella frustrated. I'm frustrated too. I came all the way from the front and sat in the back, and I still don't feel like, I don't feel like I'm finna go nowhere after this, except for being hella frustrated. I'm on all of y'all business cards because I'm about to be in y'all emails and everything. Like, y'all got to help me. You know, I'm with the Mass Liberation Project. All we do is apply for grants. Like, you know, it's 5 of us. It's 5 of us. And we trying to do the work. You know what I'm saying? So then they come back and they be like, oh, we didn't give you general operating funds. You have to do exactly this. So now we working for free, trying to get the work done, trying to fill out applications, burnt out mental health is shit. Okay? Kids are neglected. You know what I'm saying? But it's because we got to get the work done. So I don't really know what y'all just said or how that's going to fix anything I'm talking about. So if we can get y'all, if I can get your business card so that as a person who lives in Las Vegas, is a black woman, business owner, single mother, I would love to talk to y'all in another forum where I could feel a little bit more confident and like I learned a little bit more, because right now I'm just frustrated. And it just feels like nonprofits only survive because they thrive off of loss. They thrive off of showing how good they are to the white folk, pandering like, oh, look what we did with y'all money. You feel good now. We still ain't fixed shit. You know what I'm saying? And we still working hard, drowning and trying to swim. So I don't know in layman's terms how this all come back to what I'm talking about. But, you know, maybe we can work on something, workshops or something to reach the youth, because like y'all leaving me behind. And I just wanted to say that because I think that some of us in the room might not have picked up as much as we wanted to coming in here, because it was very advanced. And a lot of us are boots on the ground. You know, we're trying to figure that shit out. So.
Hold on, with what you just lifted up, and Shamika can vouch for this, right? What you talking about is 100% real. What you talking about, somebody, that's what I do in my local community. But you know what I'm struggling with right now is there's only so much of me left before I fizzle the fuck out.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? There's only so, that shit is real. My wife at this conference right here with me right now, because I had to figure out how to keep doing this work and not tear my family apart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And truth be told, like they saying, right? Y'all represent these banks and stuff. I've gone to them with a plan, written out all that stuff. It's hard to get this money, right? So I think what we trying to say in this room is, how can we get those of us that are inside the bank to really have this conversation to get these philanthropic dollars into organizations like the ones on the ground right here that's really on grassroots, working with the people, trying to help them put together business plans, trying to do it. Because a lot of this stuff is just, you go to the website here, you go this there, they meet with you one time. You know, it's not something on, you heard what I said when I worked with this group for a year before I got them $1, right? That took courage from them, that took courage from me to keep showing up at their door without an answer, but to say, this is what I think you can do and this is what the plan looks like. Until we got it right and C. Thomas released it, right? And that restaurant been around for 2 years now. You know what I'm saying? So like, how can we get more support for that is all we saying here, like for the people doing that work.
So I just want to clarify, I am not a bank.
I'm trying to understand what your organization is actually.
So I'm like the third piece of this puzzle here. You got the bank, third party, and I'm the like community, philanthropy, bring it all together piece. So to my sister in the back, I shout that from the mountaintops. I'm going to tell you, there's a lady to your right, to your right, that you need to connect with. Don't do it by yourself. And that's been our challenge. We are community people. That's what our DNA is. And we keep trying to follow the model that says, do it on your own, this rugged capitalism piece. We keep trying to follow that, and it will not work for us because that's not how we are built. The organization Compassionate Las Vegas, our network, I say we are a network of networks because we bring people together. We bring every year about 30 nonprofit leaders, a few philanthropists, a few lawyers, a few folks to mix it up a little bit. But we bring them together so they get to know each other, so that you don't have to do it all and burn out. So you can say, I don't know what I'm doing, And someone in that group will say, well, I can help you with this. I've got a little bit here. That's my whole purpose for being here, is to say, don't do it by cooperative. Right. Don't do it by yourself. And I appreciate your bravery and your transparency, because too many people are feeling what you're feeling and afraid to say it because they think they'll be judged, which is why the compassion piece is so important, because we got to help each other. So I'm going to leave it at that.
And Will,
hold on,
if
there's
nothing else that if there is a takeaway, and the takeaway that I would want to share is definitely, we had 3 grant cycles. 3. March 31st, July 31, November 30th. So, you know, and that helps you plan. Because if you fail to plan,
you plan.
Thank you, you said it, I didn't. So again, it's one of those things I would hope, because I've been on the nonprofit side. You can't do it by yourself. You cannot be the executive director, the person at the front, the person that runs the program, the person, you can't, and then write the grant. You will burn out. So we really need to make sure that when we talk about that technical assistance component, guys, we gotta galvanize and utilize the resources so that you can be out front doing what you do well. Right. Your ability to speak and use your voice is your talent, but you've got to utilize your talent versus getting bogged down in the everyday trying to chase dollars. Yeah. So we really, that's where your boards, I can't say it enough, your boards are so critical.
And a lot of us have dead weight, and I can tell that you have dead weight. Right? So you don't have people around you, I'm sorry, but you don't have people around you who are like, girl, let me handle that for you. Let me get that for you, right? A lot of us have people around us that are dead weight, right? And then we say, dang, I don't got nobody around me that's willing to help me. But it's like, they're saying, you need to make your place at the table. But we always go to the same table to try to get the same results, and we go to the same table with no help to try to get help from that table, right? So you need to change the people you are around. You need to make it a point to go to networking events around people who don't always look like us and stuff like that, because you literally have to build a support for yourself, right? You cannot keep doing what you've been doing. What do they say? That is insanity. To keep doing the same thing over and over and again, expecting different results, right?
You
have to get support.
We got 3 minutes left. Go ahead. So we have 3 minutes left. So we're going to have to look at wrapping up. But you know, but you know, we're here as for the cooperative ecosystem. We're here for cooperative development, and it's beyond a business model. It's also community development. You know, it's wealth building. You know, it's building value in the individuals that participate and are members within that. And so as we look at this, so there's this national movement. We're developing this association, the National Association of Black Cooperators. And I understand the grant process. Everybody in the room understands that. There is no guarantee behind that. There is no guarantee that it's going to be approved. It may be minor things that keeps it from getting funded. So a couple things that we're saying kind of resonate, and I'll circle back to something that I asked earlier, is how do we leverage where you all are? Yes, there's money for grant cycles going on, but how do we put that money in front of this work so that we have something to build upon, so we can help that young lady back there, so we can help individuals with capacity, so that I'm not getting called at 9 o'clock at night and up at 4 in the morning because we're trying to move money. You know what I mean? So those are some of the things we had to do personally. So what does that look like? Is that a possibility? And it's not an ask, it's not a beg. It's almost a imperative request of what has taken place in our society through the struggle. Right, and I want to just ask y'all to take that with you. Right? Like, we ain't gonna answer that right now. We're gonna give the floor to our sister right there to make the last comment, the last word to close us out of this.
Oh,
right?
I just wanted, I felt what the sister was saying, And I just wanted to say this, before I came to this session today, I had no idea what a CDFI was. So as you were talking, I got on my laptop. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I did a search on CDFIs. I found out that Harbor Bank in my community is a CDFI. I emailed the person at Harbor Bank. He just emailed me back and said, Ms. Pender.
That's
So what I'm saying to you, do that. When you're in a room like this, no, because I know it can be overwhelming because you hear the language you don't know. I have my laptop with me with every meeting. When people start saying things and I don't know what they are, I Google it right there in the meeting. So that, and so that's what you need to do. So if I were you, the one takeaway, whatever city you're in, do your CDFI search for your city, find out the institution. All of the information is there. For Baltimore, it had the person name, their telephone number, not a generic email address,
Right,
the exact email address. And Brother John just emailed me back. So that's what I want to leave you.
That's a great way to sum it up. So that is a success of the session. That is a takeaway. I'm gonna accept that.